Ready and turn. Nice.
The Drama has been a movie that I've been looking forward to for a really long time. It was among my most anticipated movies of this year, mainly because I love Robert Pattinson and I love Zendaya, so seeing them both in a movie together as the leads sounded really interesting to me. And also Christopher Boygley, I think, is a very fascinating director. I saw Dream Scenario and I really liked it. It was a very interesting movie and a really weird one in a great way. I really like what it had to say about our modern times, and when I heard he was doing another movie with these two actors that I love, I was 100% on board. I have to give a shout out to the marketing of this movie, because the entire plot of the movie revolves around one secret being revealed, and the way that the trailers got that message across, that that's what the movie was about, but they didn't at all share the secret or allude to it in any way. And I gotta give a shout out, because that made the viewing experience of this movie really fun. Because at that moment when that secret is revealed, you're discovering it alongside the characters and you're learning about it in real time, which I think is really cool. The movie revolves around two characters, Charlie and Emma, who are about to get married, and Emma suddenly, right before their wedding, reveals a secret about herself, which leads to all sorts of chaos. I really like this movie. And going into it, you're really excited. You're like, okay, what's the big secret gonna be? You're waiting for it, and then it comes. Her secret is revealed to be that when she was 15, she planned a school shooting.
Uh-oh.
You know, going in, you have all kinds of expectations, you know? You have no idea what her secret is actually gonna be, so you may make some guesses or have some theories. But then that moment comes, and she says, yeah, when I was 15, I planned a school shooting. When that secret is revealed, in that moment you realize, oh, this is what the movie's going to be about. To me, that came as a surprise. I mean, it's obviously a very shocking thing. Just judging by the trailers, you know, you kind of go in expecting something shocking, but before I knew, I kind of just thought that it would be something kind of weird and crazy just for the fun of seeing what unravels as a result. But when that moment comes, you realize, oh, this movie is saying something. This is going to be some kind of commentary and some kind of discussion about this social issue. When looking at the movie like that, as an exploration of the idea of school shootings, I think it goes about it in a really creative way. Two people about to get married, and then one person reveals that they had planned a school shooting before, and then it gets in the way of the whole wedding. I think that the premise makes for a really entertaining way to explore the subject. A lot of the rest of the movie is Charlie trying to figure out what he should do, because they're about to get married, and he needs to know whether he's going to go through with it or not. So they have these conversations where he's trying to understand why. You know, that's the big question, is why did she get to this point? Or how did she get to this point? And I think the way that we get to explore her psychology is a really strong and interesting trait of this movie. Hearing a person talk about their past and how they feel about it is one way to look into their psychology, and you can really gain a lot from that in terms of trying to understand them. But we also get to see her past. We get to go back and see her as a teenager and to see what pushed her to do this thing. Getting both of those sides, I guess, of the story, whether she's trying to explain it to the love of her life or we're actually getting to see it, I think those are both done really well and are both really interesting ways of looking into her psychology. The perspective that this movie has on this issue through the character of Emma is truly fascinating. Essentially, her whole explanation for why she did this thing, why she planned a school shooting, why she was pushed to that point, was because, you know, there were obviously some social issues. She was kind of picked on in school and kind of an outcast. That's I think, to be expected. But what I think is really interesting about her explanation is the way she says she was drawn to the aesthetics of it, and she thought that it looked cool. I just think that says something about the state of this country and how something like mass shootings can be not normalized, but they happen a lot. It's a big deal. It's a very big issue. To see how that issue influenced her as a really depressed, struggling teen, that perspective is just really fascinating to me. And I think that it does make Emma a fascinating character. I think it's a really fascinating and provocative story about this issue, but presented to us in a way that is really interesting and also really entertaining. This movie is funny. I feel kind of bad for saying that, but it's true. There's a lot of really dark humor in this movie, given the thing that it's talking about. But I was laughing. Dark humor works on me, and I guess Christopher Borgli, he knows what he's doing, and it worked on me. Most of the comedy in this movie comes from Robert Pattinson's performance. He gives a really great and entertaining performance.
You said he was slow.
Playing this guy he's just a normal guy, but he's pretty goofy. And to see him be thrown into this situation where his soon-to-be wife just revealed that as a child she planned a school shooting, seeing him navigate that issue and that dilemma is both insightful at points, understandably so. He really wants to know why, and I think he asks the right questions. So his character is not only helpful and insightful in understanding Emma, but he's also funny because this goofy guy has to deal with this shit, and there's a lot of comedy that comes out of that. The supporting cast plays really important roles in exploring the issue as well. There's this couple that Charlie and Emma are friends with, Rachel and Mike. Their perspectives say a lot about people in society today, but also on the issue itself. Rachel's whole stance is that this is unbelievable. This is unforgivable. I hate you. I want nothing to do with you. How could you do something like this? And her husband, Mike, is kind of acting as the mediator between the two sides. I think those two characters have a really interesting dynamic together, and with Charlie and Emma. Whether or not this is intentional, it seems that through the course of the movie, Charlie is trying to understand Emma, and along with him, we are trying to understand Emma. But I also think that Christopher Borgli himself is trying to understand Emma. I don't necessarily think that even he has a full grip on her as a person. I think in writing this movie, he wrote a character who he doesn't fully understand, and who he's trying to understand. I think the character of Emma exists as a kind of vessel for these ideas that we may not fully understand. There's a general vibe that this movie kind of gives off where I feel like, just from a creator's standpoint, Christopher Borgli's kind of saying, I don't know why people do school shootings, but here's a character, and here's her story, and maybe this is why people do school shootings. And yeah, maybe it is. Maybe that's one of the stories that has led to someone doing a mass shooting. Maybe that is one of them. But it doesn't really kind of give an answer to that question of why do people do this. It kind of just tells us Emma's story and seems to say, maybe this is why. In terms of the journey of the two main characters, Charlie and Emma, and how their story ends, I still kind of don't know how I feel about it. Because what happens is basically everything that could have gone wrong goes wrong. With this secret coming out, you kind of get to the point where it's kind of rock bottom. Everything that we were worried about happening happens. And after that, our characters are just exhausted. And the movie ends with them in a diner kind of just seemingly choosing to forget it all. Just trying to start over and start fresh with a little game of role play. And then that's where the movie ends. And I honestly still don't know how I feel about that resolution for them. It kind of left you wanting more, but I do think that it makes sense for their characters given everything that's just happened. I think it's only natural that they would want to just kind of sit down and kind of just try to forget about it. But I think when that ending comes, it really highlights the idea that you don't really get much of a resolution out of this movie. In that the film starts these conversations about this issue and explores them through Emma, but you don't really get a resolution with that. I mean, this movie is dealing with some big issues, but again, bringing it back to Christopher Borgli, I think he's just kind of taking this time to kind of study Emma's character through Charlie, and I can't really say that he gets any kind of closure with that, and neither do we as an audience. It doesn't really answer any questions. It just observes one person's story. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I realized, when that ending came, that I did kind of want more. That's just the movie it is. It's there to pose questions and for us to attempt to understand certain things, but if we don't, we don't. And maybe he doesn't either. But I think overall, this movie's definitely worth watching, and I think that the study of Emma's character and her psychology through her past and through the present and how it affects people around her is enough for this movie to be interesting and to be worth watching. I think it's very entertaining, very fascinating. Robert Pattinson and Zendaya are amazing, and I think, as weird as it sounds, given what this movie is about, I think you'll have a fun time.